everyone, and thank you so much for joining me here for a Daily Spark TV. You guys know who I am. I'm Dr. Angela Butchester, and you know what I like to do on my show. I want to enlighten you. I want to inspire you. I want to empower you to become your best self. Now, scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today, we want you fired up about my guest. Today, I'll be speaking with Charley Swords, and we're talking about her book, Dare to Be a Revolutionary Leader. People are the solution. Change your leadership culture. So go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Charley. Thank you so much for joining me here today on Daily Spark TV.
Hello, Dr. Angela. It's an absolute pleasure, and thank you very much for having me on.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, as is tradition here on the show, we always give our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves to perhaps those few people out there that may be unfamiliar with you or your work. So first question, tell us a little bit about yourself. Charley, what makes you, you?
Great. Well, thanks, Dr. Angela. I'm Charley Swords. I'm an Irish woman, and I'm probably best known, I'd imagine, as an international leadership and career mentor and consultant. I come from a very small town in, yes, very small country, but I've worked in over 26 countries in the last 24 years, and really, I found that the quality of my life, it improved significantly in meeting so many people and in understanding that regardless of the countries or the continents, we have so much in common. So if we look at what got me to where I am today, when I finished school, I joined one of the largest banks here in Ireland, and I worked there for about 18 years. I grew a little disillusioned with the leadership as I saw it, or with the institution, and suffice to say, I felt my core values didn't match the stated values and practices of the institution. So I had a decision to make, and I chose to leave and to be true to myself. I also had a deep desire to work in the developing countries, and I just wanted to leave a legacy. And so basically I set up my own company, and I have worked privately and with some of the donor funds in various countries. I'm really
passionate. I love that. You are such a full and well-rounded person, and I love that. Now, being an author, is that something that you've always wanted to do, or did you find that life presented the opportunity and you said yes?
I think shortly after I started my international work, it came to me that it was something that I thought, yes, I would like to do it. There were things I was noticing that were similar in all countries or all organizations and in all leadership. And I thought, gosh, maybe I would like to actually have a voice. And, I thought about it, but what really struck a chord with me was I was working in Ethiopia many years ago. And one of the participants in my training room actually asked me where he could get my book. And I thought, gosh, it's actually in my head. I didn't have one at the time. And I think that was one of the aha moments when I thought somebody actually thought I'd already written one, or that I should have. So it seemed to be confirmation to me that, I really do need to get it out on paper. So I thought about it long and hard, and made the decision, and I made a commitment. And yeah, it took a little longer than I had thought, because you're time poor with traveling.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. Now, the title of your book, how did you come about the title? Did you find that the title came first? Did it develop out of your writings? Tell us about that.
It really came from the writing. I had an idea in my mind that the book had to be about change and leadership change. And I wanted a very an impactful title that would cause people to go, and what do you mean? Or what does that mean? So what I did actually was I structured the format of my book, the outline of my book, and I revised it 3 times, but predominantly it was the same format. And then I thought, okay, so what encapsulates all of this? And I Googled so many leadership books you wouldn't believe. And I had a flip chart stand here, and I simply went doodling in this, and I don't know how many versions, but then it came down to 2 variations. And the first word had to be dare. It was about being courageous and take a leap of faith and change and focus on people. So it had to be dare to be. So it was either going to be dare to be a revolutionary leader or dare to be a brave leader. And I stuck with revolutionary.
I love it. I love it. Now, when it comes to the proper way in which to read your book, many authors will construct it so that you should read it from cover to cover, simply page after page. Others perhaps break it down into chapters or sections where you should complete that chapter before moving to the next. Some authors I've spoken to choose to do it more like a devotional, where you need to read 4 or 5, 7 pages or so before moving on to the next section. That hopping through the book, or perhaps reading the last page first, really doesn't make you any more aware of what's going on in the book, because it's constructed in a certain way. Did you find that you formatted your book in a particular way so that it can be best utilized, or is it reader's choice?
It's a great question. And I actually structured it very consciously. And I structured it in 3 parts. And I would really, based on what you said, I would urge readers, please do not go to the last page first. So there is no plot in this. The book is structured in 3 parts. So the first part is about yourself, the middle section is about your employees, and the last section is about your results. And it's the smallest section deliberately. So in my work with leaders and the management teams and boards of directors over the years, when we talk about strategy and we talk about leadership, it's always about the bottom line and the figures. And, I seem to be quite unique in that I say, could we just park the figures outside the door, and can we come back to, how do you achieve those figures? And all of those figures are achieved through their people, through their employees. And because the employees are down in the pecking order when it comes to developing strategy, largely, I just felt it was important to come back and to put them right back in the center, into the focus. Now, most leaders, I believe, that you don't ever manage people. I think no adult likes to be told what to do. I think all of us have a great capability and a great competency. And I think we need to be very respectful of the adults, the human beings that are being led, that work with us. And I really believe that you lead people and you manage systems, solutions, and situations. And also, what I've seen over the years is that to be a very effective and an impactful and an influential leader, you actually need to step back first, and you need to master self-leadership. And therefore, that is why I structured the book as I did. So the bulk of the book, the greatest part, is on self-leadership, how to develop yourself, how to do the inner work, and to go back in and go, well, who am I really? What is the essence of me? There is something bigger, there's a higher source, my core values, my empathy, my characteristics. And when you've mastered the self-leadership, then you are in a better place to lead your people.
Right. Now, when it comes to the ideal audience, not every book is for every person. With that being said, is this the appropriate book for aspiring entrepreneurs, solopreneurs? I like to call them the preneur people, mompreneurs, whatever you are, preneur. Is it okay for someone who is an employee seeking to be a better employee? Or is it just good for anyone who has an interest in making themselves their best self?
I think it ticks all those boxes. Self-leadership, we all have a leader in us, whether we're leading ourselves just as a human being in our own personal lives, whether we're leading ourselves as a leader or in a leadership role in the community, in the church, in an organization, as a solopreneur, as an entrepreneur, or as the CEO or a board member in an organization. This book applies to everybody. And it's about not waiting for somebody else to give you permission to lead and to take charge and to be yourself. And it is all about, it's a go-to, it's a guidebook, really. It's something you can dip in and out of when you wish, to be the very best version of yourself, and for everybody who deals with people. And it's about caring for and respecting everybody with whom you come into contact with in life and in business.
I love it. I love it. Now it's almost time for us to go to break, but I want to ask you one process question. And that is, when it was time to publish your book, every author has to decide, do I self-publish? Do I use the professionals or publishing house? How did you go about making that decision?
What I felt was that I was not known as a writer or an author. And what I really felt was I needed to get my voice out there first. And I looked at my options. I knew nothing about the traditional publishing route, and I knew less, I would imagine, about the self-publishing. But when I looked at my options, I have a great affinity with Louise Hay and Hay House. And then I focused really on Balboa Press, because they are a subsidiary of Hay House. And I love their teaching. And to be quite honest with you, they took me through the process very, very diligently, very clearly. And I just felt this is the way for me to go. And I felt that I would get the support that I needed, and that they understood what I wanted to achieve with the book. So I took well, I suppose really I was a bit of a revolutionary in that I decided, okay, I'm going to invest in this. I want this to get out there. So I self-published. And
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, it is time for us to go to break. But before we do, can you remind everyone, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Angela. So the title of my book is Dare to be a Revolutionary Leader. People are the solution, and change your leadership culture. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and with Balboa Press, and in all great bookshops. And you can keep in touch with me via my website, charleyswords.com, and also on Facebook, charleyswords.com.
Thank you so much for that. We'll be back right after this.
There's something I need to tell you. This relationship isn't working. It isn't good for me. I'm breaking up with you.
It's not me, it's you. I became dependent on you. And you were always there for me, even when I was at my worst.
But I didn't realize the damage you were doing.
You created a toxic environment. Not just for me, but others too. You were suffocating me.
We're just no longer compatible. Also, there's one more thing. I met someone else.
I'm respected in public. I'm making friends. I feel like I can breathe again.
That's how I deserve to be treated.
我们书店结束了。
तुम फिर से कभी नहीं मुझे दुख दोगे। Ni siquiera te necesito.
Parce que j'ai une autre option.
And it's a healthy relationship.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for our Daily Spark TV. Now, Charlie, my next question for you is, I would usually ask you to tell us a little bit about the book, but you've been doing that. So thank you so much for giving us that information. But I want to give you an opportunity to tell us more about your process now. You said that there's 3 different sections, if you will, in which we can determine, is this the part that we want to read, or is this the part we need to read? With that being said, how did you determine which part to include versus exclude? I'm sure there's so much information you wanted to tell the world. How did you make the decision of what to include in the book?
It was a difficult decision, partly because the book is a culmination of all my work over probably the guts of a 40-year career in how I saw leadership and understood it when I worked in the financial sector. And then I saw it entirely differently when I stepped into the international consulting world. And then in the more recent years, I've done a lot of executive education and worked with leaders and the boards of directors. And so how I determined the key points to go into the book, it came from my work with all of these teams, with all of these people. So the same issues kept arising. And that, for me, that was an indicator that these are the areas that need to be addressed more than others. So financials are covered everywhere, and for me, again, it's about people. And when I work on the strategy with a lot of organizations, everybody knows that the real cause of strategy not being implemented is the fact that, the people don't understand it. So it's kind of like a diktat from the top down. And for me, the whole process is, if you have that fantastic leadership quality and process with your people, and you have those relationships of trust, and if you also invite them to contribute to the strategy, you will have far greater buy-in, and you will achieve your implementation far more easily. So the topics were determined based on 40-odd years of work across 26 countries, and it was the similar challenges and issues that kept arising around people not being seen, not being heard, and not being valued enough in the organizations.
And isn't that quite curious that that's what we are hearing in society in general? When people do not feel heard, when people do not feel seen, understood, or that they are important as a part of the collective, then people do raise their voices. And I think that many employers are learning that with the next generation, what used to be acceptable before is no longer acceptable. Yep. And that there are, and I can't speak for every country or for every state within the United States, but we are finding that people are raising their voices and demanding change for such a time as this. So I think you're spot on. Speaking of being spot on, why did you feel that it was so important to get this information out now? People are going to say, hey, we've been reading books about what's going on in the world since the beginning of time. What makes your book special or different?
I think what makes it different is that this is, from me, this is a fresh perspective on leadership, based on having studied and having utilized and seen many of my clients and client organizations utilize the various leadership models that already exist. And I do believe, particularly with the pandemic, but even prior to that, all wasn't well in the world, if we call it that way. I do believe that the leadership models that got us to where we are today, they're not the models to take us forward, to correct the mistakes that have been made. And therefore, a new perspective was required. I had been thinking about it for long enough, and I said, okay, now is my time to put my perspective out there and to explain it and to say, I truly, truly believe people are the solution. They're not the cause of the problems. And I also would be concerned, and I'm concerned, at how humanity is being compromised with this interminable change or chasing of technology. And people can't keep up with the technological changes. And I think that is a difficulty. And I think we have got to come back and say, why are we forcing people to try to adapt to a machine or a technology? It should be the other way around, that people are the greatest resource we have, and they need to continue to be treated with dignity and respect. And let's just, work around that. I just think they have got to be put back into pole position. And I just felt now more than ever is the time to say what I believe.
Now, within the title of your book, you use two words that I think can, depending on who you ask, when you ask, and where you ask, they may come up with different answers. Those two words are revolutionary and culture. When you address those two aspects, what culture here in the States is totally different than culture in the UK, totally different than the culture in South Africa. With that being said, how do you address culture and revolution, or being revolutionary, but yet manage to intertwine it with all of the diverse cultures as well?
It's a great question. So the approach I took, because my experience came from a mix of wonderful cultures. And really what I would like people to do is to start something of a revolution. Now, God knows we have enough of the wars. That's not the revolution I'm thinking about. I would like people to revolutionize their thinking and to really step back and to consciously think about how they're leading, how they're thinking, what their attitudes towards their employees are, and what their behaviors are like. We hear about, yes, we have to be a great role model, but talk is cheap. So it's about really step back, take the time, and revolutionize your thinking. And as part of that process, I believe that then when you revolutionize and you become that revolutionary leader, that I do a lot of work with executives on culture. And predominantly the discussions start around, we need to have a culture of change, or we want to develop a culture of innovation, or a culture of learning and development. And while they are all fantastic in their own right, I believe that the overriding culture must be a culture of respect for the people who at every level in an organization who work in it. And that's how I see the title. So the revolutionizing is revolutionizing the thought process and to become more conscious leaders. And the culture that I believe is most required now is a culture of respect. And the others can be subcultures within that, but the umbrella culture, the overriding culture, has to be one of respect. And that
I could not agree with you more. And I find that as I speak with our millennial generation, that is one of the things that they were almost demanding, is that everyone should be treated with respect and dignity. So I really know that you are on to something there. Now, I want to ask, we have time for maybe one or two more questions, but one thing that I want to ask you is, what is that overarching message that you want for someone who has picked up a copy of your book? What is the one takeaway that you want to make sure they're aware of?
I want them to become increasingly aware of their own value and worth as an individual and as a professional. And I want them to do the inner work. I want them to value themselves enough to take the time to do the inner work, to really come back to the essence of who they are. And I want them to understand that the influence and the impact that they can have for the good on everybody else, on their team and in their life. So it really is a case of step back, master your self-leadership, your self-development, your thought process, and that will then help you to have a lasting impact. So I really want the reader of my book to go, wow, that really helped me develop myself, as a result of which I'm going to do more to respect and value and develop the people who work with me. And I would hope then that, you know, the legacy is that this will continue for generations to come. The book is not dated. And I hope that the content and the learning will not be dated either.
I love it. I love it. So I love how you say that, because that means that the information is appropriate for now. Whenever it is that you read it, it is appropriate for that day. Very mindful of you. I love it. I love it.
Yes.
Well, Charley, thank you so much for spending time with us here today. I tell you, we need more time because you are such a wealth of information, and I would love to spend more time with you. Anytime you want to come back, please know that you are welcome to do so. Absolutely. Now,
Thanks,
before I
Megan.
let you go, could you please remind everyone, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
Absolutely. Thank you. So my book is Dare to be a Revolutionary Leader. People are the solution, and change your leadership culture. It's available on Amazon and on Barnes & Noble and on the Balboa Press website. And it's also available in all leading bookstores. And you can please, by all means, keep in touch with me via my website, charleyswords.com, and on Facebook, charleyswords.com. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And viewers, thank you for spending time with us here today as well. I hope that we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you again today. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone.
Hi, do you have something to share? Be a guest. Want to sponsor an episode? Visit drangela.chester.com. Thanks again for watching Daily Spark TV.
Hi there! If I can show you how to get your own TV show or independent movie on a global TV platform, reaching 50 million homes and devices for free, would you give me about 15 minutes of your time? Plus, we will show you how you can get paid royalties every month on your on-demand TV content. Hey, TV is booming, so join the movement. Click the link below or visit www.mytvoffer.info.